I would say that people actually progress quicker in progress with the combination of group therapy and individual therapy because now they're actually seeing the importance of relationships. And so when they see there's other people that struggle and they're thinking like me, it makes the world less lonely. If the world's less lonely, that means I can connect, which I'll become more hopeful. If I become more hopeful, I'm going to be more motivated to change. My counseling journey started in 2010. I was doing my undergrad psych degree, and I was doing my internship at the crisis hotline in town. And I took a call with this one guy, and he was sexually abused, and there was not a lot of resources. And I was like, I got to get into training to provide these services for these guys. So I started the adult psych unit, pathways, child adolescent, crisis 6, geriatric psych. Back then they had a dual diagnosis program. So I was doing groups from various different units on top of family sessions, biopsychosocial, to come up with groups and work in the evening time to do groups. And now currently I'm here full time, and now I'm leading a physician's recovery group, a men's sex addiction group, and a substance abuse group for men here as well. Okay, so group to me is very powerful because in group therapy, even if you know your therapist is saying makes sense, sometimes it lands better if a group participant is also saying something that's similar. Or there might be something that group participant may say to another participant that might just register because they have similar stories. And so a lot of times group dynamics, they bring out other issues of people because we're always in group therapy in a way. Anytime there's your family, friends, that's a group process, that's a group dynamic. Groups can be anywhere. Group therapy really helps clients understand how their role changes because I have clients I'll see individually and in group, and they act differently in group than they do in individual because as soon as someone else enters the room, you change your posture, you change your position, you change how you interact with people. So group therapy gives you a different perspective of your client versus individual. So you could do individual and group, and together they make a very powerful intervention and component for people. There are some people that they just can't do group therapy because group therapy is sometimes too overstimulating for them, or they just have difficulty just attaching, connecting with people due to their trauma history or their relationship history. Sometimes I'll have people try groups and they say, I can't do it yet, and then they'll do some individual therapy and then they can eventually do groups. So that's why one of the reasons we take the approach of doing an intake first, getting them comfortable with the therapist. Sometimes they already know me, sometimes they don't. And having that contact first kind of helps because when they go in the room, at least they know the therapist. So they're not getting introduced to a new therapist and group members at the same time. Already people get nervous meeting their counselor for the first time. So why add two of them at the same time? A lot of the guys will introduce themselves, how they got here with brief stories, and they may stay after and talk to them after group. So that's kind of how that usually helps people. And when they see that it's not like an AA meeting or an NA meeting, it's different. It's group therapy. It's not we're just talking about substance abuse. We're talking about the things that are feeding the substance abuse or the relapse patterns. And it sometimes really helps people to be there for other people. Right, and so if they're able to help someone else, it kind of is like, okay, this was good to be there for someone else. It's taking me out of my stuff for a little bit. There's some people, they just do better in the group process. For some clients, they're just sitting across the therapist. There's a lot of pressure to perform, so they feel more relaxed knowing that they can listen to other people and then chime in, and it's not all on them. Every person has a different preference. Adding group therapy, individual therapy opens more doors for, if you're not fitting individual, to sit you in group, and when they get in group, they're like, yeah, I can do this. Well, before they do group, I meet with them to kind of outline how group will be. These are the expectations. So I kind of let them know, like, there's no end to it. You just keep coming. Everyone's goal here is their goal is to be motivated to change and stop using. I try to help them understand this isn't a program where we're making people. This is voluntarily group therapy. Usually people are like, okay, I can do that. It's kind of informal. You sit down and everyone kind of introduces and kind of let them know eventually you're going to tell your life story, so it helps you connect with people. And you'll get feedback, and you'll eventually get to know your group members in a different way. In group therapy, having a licensed counselor lead it, is we're going to talk about various issues within the ballpark, of course, but the licensed clinician's approach is a little different because we can add different interventions that people who aren't trained can't do. An interesting approach is helping people learn that it's okay to sit there with someone. So for example, we had someone share something powerful and they started crying. So immediately the group looks to the therapist to see what should we do, and then they see the therapist sit there, they're going to sit there. Sometimes people just need for you to sit there. They don't need you to pat them on the back. They don't need you to hand them a tissue. Sometimes just sitting there is powerful. So I want to make this ongoing. I want it to be something that the community has for years. You can go here and get this group experience. I've had guys who've been drinking for years, and just coming to groups and doing individual therapy, it's changed his life, and he said it's getting me back to my kids. And I really think the group therapy helped me the most because I'm learning how to relate to people. Again, sober. My first time in group, I was just awkward and nervous, and as I started working through it and learning how to reconnect with people, I just started doing that at work. I started doing that with my family. I started doing that with my friends. And as my relationships improve, because I learned how to work through my insecurities in group, I learned that I can actually bond with people, and that was powerful. And it took them 30 plus years to learn that, but that's okay. That's part of what group can teach you that you can't get in individual therapy. Now, my favorite approaches to do is when they come to group first that week, and then they do individual the next day, and they do the best processing the day after group. Because they can process their dynamics with people, they can process what they learned, and then they can connect it to what's going on with them individually outside of group. And it really has helped a lot of the guys who especially have that model stay sober longer. Well, progress, I kind of track formally and informally. A formal way is we do give coins, we give chips in groups now. What we do at Windhurst when people do the chips or the coins is I actually have other group members give them the chip or the coin, and the member will usually give us a brief speech about that person before they hand them the coin or the chip. So if it's 30 day, or it's you just recently relapsed, but here's a new chip, or this is, we just gave someone yesterday their 2-year chip and had someone give a speech to them. It was like, brief little speech. And he gave them the coin and hugged them and embraced them, and the group applauded it, So we kind of do that an informal way that as a therapist I would measure some people's progress. If it's not by chip, it's about how they're doing integrating in group and hearing how they actually say, this is how I'm changing, how I'm integrating with my relationships. If the person's verbal about struggling about staying sober, the group really rallies around that group member and they offer support. They share their story. They offer healthy suggestions that are within their realm, because there's some people in the group, they are sponsors in AA and NA, and they can offer different perspective that the counselor can't. So with the group therapy, you have various perspectives, which is really great, because one of the best ways for people to get better is you want to have various resources to knowledge, not just one. So You can hear from a therapist. You can hear from this one who has 2-3 years sobriety. You can hear from this person who's been in the exact same situation. And if someone relapses, they'll usually let the counselor know. And I'll usually say, do you want to tell the group, or how do you want to go about it? Do you want to keep it to yourself until you're ready? And a lot of times they say, no, I'm ready to tell the group, just set me up for it. And I'm like, okay, well, before we start, such and such wants to talk. And I'll let them share their story and let the group rally around them. Oh, absolutely. Sometimes some of the guys will stay out in the parking lot and carry on the conversation. Or sometimes the guys will get there before group, because we open the group room up 30 minutes before group, and they play pool or ping pong, and they just start chit-chatting and catching up with each other. And that's really helped their relationships, because they can just have some other type of dialogue outside of group. They've kind of got to know each other in a different way, and sometimes they'll stay after and they'll talk. In that sense, it's been really helpful. If the world's less lonely, that means I can connect, which I'll become more hopeful. If I become more hopeful, I'm going to be more motivated to change.